Welcome back. You can tell by my outfit, this is a different day. I'd like to step out of talking about ACEs and focusing on ACEs as much and change the subject to resilience. There have been a lot of studies published on resilience, and I'm going to pick out some ones that are most fundamental for our purposes here. It's a much more it's a much more happy, compelling, upbeat, uh, hopeful topic, because, like I said previously, prior ACE topics and presentations I've heard ended up pretty bleak. But now that we've got an understanding of how stress and ACEs and cortisol impact the body, we also are now beginning to understand ways in which we can mitigate and assuage and change that stress response in our body, and hopefully, with our students, help them begin to manage their own emotions and their own stress responses as well. So here's a review. Here's an update of the evidence. There's three things that we're going to look at. First off is going to be internal traits and characteristics of resilient people, resilient kids. When you see these things in your kids, in your students, nurture them, point them out, lift them up. This is the time that these are the things that are going to help them become successful in their lives, overcome the ACEs. We are also going to look at external factors contributing to resilience. What can we do from the outside, from a systemic perspective, looking in? What can we do collectively to help children that have been through ACEs, and also ourselves? Some of us have also been through a lot of ACEs. And I'm also going to step into talking about oxytocin. This appears to be a promising way to begin to assuage a lot of the stress. This will combine those two internal and external factors. So first off, this is some older research, but it keeps it keeps being supported in later literature. So this is from '95, and Bernard argued that resilient children usually have four traits in common. So Bernard studied children, looking at, okay, who's doing well overcoming these really tremendously trying times when they were children. First thing is social competence. How able are you at navigating relationships with others, building trusting, positive relationships with both adults and peers. So, if you have somebody that's looks socially cunning but then burns bridges afterwards, that would not be somebody who's socially competent. Somebody who is genuine with their relationships makes relationships. Sorry, that must have been all the no, just kidding. Moving on to number two, problem-solving skills. Problem-solving skills are necessary to become resilient. Basically, within the kid, there's a planning, or within the person that sees oneself being in control and being resourceful. Third, a sense of autonomy, a sense of one's own identity, an ability to act independently, exert some control over one's environment. So not feeling helpless. There's this sense of that I can do something, this self-efficacy, that I can make a difference in my life. And then finally, a sense of purpose, kind of being more goal-oriented toward the future, showing persistence, hopefulness. And that's really where, Chan Hellman's research comes in with that, with hope. But let's go into some of the studies that are providing an update with this. So here's one from 2017, looking at homeless adolescents with a history of ACEs. Again, it's supporting that autonomy factor, that third factor. Those who view themselves as resilient were found less likely to engage in risky behavior, were less lonely, and were more hopeful. So those kind of feed into each other, those four factors as well. Becoming resilient it can be achieved through various pathways. Innate and environmental influences undoubtedly contribute, but also there's been studies on resilience and recovery of at-risk children that discovered that relationships with supportive adults mitigate the vulnerabilities of adversity and facilitate positive outcomes as adults. So yeah, there are a lot of things internal and external, but there's also this, if I can have one, that's always my thing. When I was going through treating children both at Meadow Lake and at Youth and Family, if there's just one supportive adult, if there's one rock stable person that's there, there are good outcomes, because there's that oxytocin, there's that release in that relationship that it's going to be okay. I've got hope because I've got hope from this person. If you can be that person at school for an hour or two that provides students hope, you're doing something, you're making a difference. College age students, resilience, resilience factors. Okay, what happens after K, 6 through 12? This comes from 2019. Supported ACE study again. I mean, every single ACE event decreased the odds of obtaining a degree or even going to college. Significant predictors of academic success. So these would be the internal, things that really, and I guess there'd be some external things there too. But if you have somebody who's a female, normal weight, not smoking, not married, in good health, and exercising, this is a very strong prediction of resilience. So if you see those things, those folks are the ones that are more likely to be successful. And so, it'd be good to try to nurture some of these other things in folks, whether it be exercise, whether it be, things that are going to promote normal weight and excellent health. Those things are going to be something, if we can promote those in the other kids, that will help them be resilient as they move forward in their lives. What about some of the most at-risk kids, those who are aging out of foster care? Some of these are some really difficult stories, but these traits have been found. So this comes from a 2021 study and 2013. So it basically, this Kincaid study backed up what other studies had found. If there's somebody that has self-esteem, a belief in themselves, a positive outlook, things are going to be okay with me, things are going to be good. And then positive social support, again, the oxytocin, whether it be from a family that's going to, as they age out of foster care, going to let them come back in, or some other adult in the network that has, or some other supportive person in the network that can help them, make that transition. Again, it's so much about those relationships. And this comes from Ann Maston, who does a lot on resilience and external factors. And this is from a meta-analysis of several. This is why I'm trying to just break things down and make it short. This is a meta-analysis of several studies on resilience over many, many years. And so there's a striking alignment of resilience factors observed in human systems, ranging from individuals to communities. And this suggests the possibility of networked, multi-system protective factors that work in concert. And so no one thing, just doing one of those things is not enough. If we can create systems that support, that's when we start to see more resilience and we start to see these things change. One of the most disheartening things that I've had when I've talked about ACEs, we got a group of people together. We got a group of people together in 2017, a bunch of administrators, judges, district attorneys, child welfare, bunch of people from education, school districts, nurses, health. We had a room full of people watching this video on resilience and watching, okay, what are some things we can do as a system that will help kids, that will help change the culture, that will help. And so there were ideas thrown out in the film. There were ideas that were being discussed. And an administrator stood up from a school district and said, this is the new normal. This is just how things are. And walked out. And that was so disheartening. It's not the new normal. It's not, we don't have to accept this. We can do things to make a difference. We can do things to make a difference. Because the evidence is there, it's solid. The science is solid behind it. And these are the things we can do. Externally, what we can do. the short list of building resilience factors for children and youth. And this is from 2009, it's updated in 2014. Number one factor that predicts resilience in kids is having effective parents and caregivers. Well, no kidding. No joke, Taylor. No S, right? Well, if we have folks that are struggling, that are working 3 jobs, that can't afford health insurance, that just almost every adult I worked with at Youth and Family when I was working with kids, almost every adult had defaulted on healthcare payments. They owed St. Mary's, they owed Integris, because they couldn't afford it, because they were taking care of kids. We can do things that can help. Well, they should just go to the ER. That's the only thing they got. Effective parents and caregivers. There's a lot of things we can do to support. Connections to other competent and caring adults. Other folks that are out there. Pro-social, competent peers and friends. The first 3, the first 3 factors, what we found since this has been published? The first 3 factors have to do with oxytocin release in the brain. And so that's where we're going with this. If we can form supportive bonds with each other, where we're not, at each other's throats, this is where the change happens. This is where we go from a cortisol stress, fight or flight response, where we're not learning, where we're fighting. This is how we go to, this kid is now calm in school. This kid is now listening and learning and is able to read better and is able to do math better and now has a better chance of succeeding. There are also a lot of other things, and I'll, you're welcome to stop this and read. I've been through that before. So how do we overcome this? How do we overcome this? Oxytocin's released when you get a hug, when you get a nice, caring, compassionate hug with someone. And so the relationships, if you want to make a difference in somebody's life, form a good relationship with them. Work on the relationship. I'll do a quick segment on how to make a better relationship too. Just a real quick. So check in with the other videos too. What we've found, and this originally came from studies with mice and prairie voles and rats, but we found that if we inject these rats have been traumatized with oxytocin, you can go in and then look at their brain where it's been damaged from all the cortisol, from all the trauma they've been subjected to, and you can see growth and healing, neurogenesis, new growth, new connections being made. And so it's like, can I walk around with like a blow dart and hit people in the neck with oxytocin? They actually have nasal spray. They actually, since I started talking about this and learning about trauma, they actually have nasal spray for people who've been through PTSD, traumatic events, and that's found to show some promising effects of taking away some of the symptoms of trauma. So I mean, there's some science that's behind this. I'm not going to spend time on. I think Maslow got it wrong with children, because I think for children, yeah, these physiological and safety needs, yeah, they're important, right? But children are dependent, and so they've got to have this one first. They've got to have belongingness and love needs first. That has to be at the bottom of the pyramid for kids. For us adults, yeah, these two, sure, but I think Maslow has it wrong with kids. Another study. This is from 2020. And it really talks about oxytocin, kind of bringing it together here. Clinical studies show that oxytocin regulates social behaviors such as pair bonding, social interaction. This HPA axis, that's fight versus flight, is what it's talking about. It mitigates, it can mitigate the fight versus flight reaction. So you don't have so much cortisol, right? Oxytocin plays an important role in regulating caloric intake, metabolism, cardiovascular homeostasis. So you think about heart problems. Oxytocin is involved in attenuating the neurochemical effects of trauma by facilitating both physical attachment, such as wound healing, and psychological social attachment, thereby increasing resilience to subsequent traumatic events. Clinical trials have been intranasal. I was talking about the nasal spray. Oxytocin provides therapeutic benefits with PTSD, major depression. So it's out there. It's out there. And we're not going to walk around with nasal spray shooting it up. You know, that's our thing in our societies. If there's a pill, if there's something I can take to just make it better, if there's something we can do to make it better, is be nice to each other. Take a breath when we start to get angry and not yell. All right. So there are some things that we can do to make it better. I used to have this image that it was so hard to rewire the brain. You know, trauma I used to equate to, you know, creating big rivers like the canyons are in this picture right here. And then when we practiced, you know, deep breathing or practiced ways of treating people better or ways of working through working through our trauma through counseling, it was hard work. It's like making new paths where, you know, this is really, if it rains, you know, the water is still going to run through here. And when you get stressed, you're still going to get angry and freak out. But the research is showing different things. Even short-term interventions, less than a minute, were shown to elicit oxytocin release. Short-term intervention is stopping by a kid's desk, you know, getting down on eye-to-eye level. Hey, what's going on today? Hey, tell me about what happened this weekend. Tell me about your soccer game. Tell me about how things are going with your family. Just that minute, that eye-to-eye gaze, getting on, you know, a child's level, on a youth level, helps them. Helps you know, release that oxytocin, release that, and you know what? They may think about that conversation with you a little bit, and it may take them away from their studies for a minute. But you know what? If they were stressed about something over here, that's going to likely be calmed down, and they're going to be more able to focus on whatever the task it is that you've given. And you know what? If you gave them a task and they've got a bond with you, it's like, yeah, I kind of care about Mrs. So-and-so or Mr. So-and-so. I think I'll do that because I know they care about me. So just some things to create safety, trust, security, relationship, to, you know, induce that oxytocin release. Again, eye-to-eye level is important. When you're over somebody talking down to them, it's not really that can be threatening, but it's also not really, it's not really a bonding moment. Plan to spend more time with your trouble students. I mean, like I said in another video, everybody has their own personality. You know, we're going to have to make, yeah, well, you're taking away from I had one teacher that I was teaching in one of my classes, and she, you know, in a discussion post, just vitriolic, these kids that are acting out are taking away the kids that deserve more. They deserve my time. Yeah, they do. But the kids that are acting out didn't get something that they needed. It's not your fault. It's not your fault they didn't get what they needed, but they are in your classroom now. And so you can make a choice and be resentful of them, or you can try to give them small doses of what they missed. And we know what the troubled kids are. We hear about them, you know, when they age up, when they're in somebody else's class. These students will not be able to access their learning zone without safety, without a bond. Try labeled praise. Labeled praise, you know, I know each one of you know what that is. It's drawing attention to something specific that kid, I really like. And even, you know, other kids in the classroom, I really like how you're sitting quietly and using, you know, this time to work on your homework. I really like how, you know, you came in and put your stuff under your desk and you're not looking at your phone. I appreciate that. Class rituals are important, regardless of the class, regardless if you have somebody for an hour, homeroom, whatever. Predictability. If they know what they expect when they come in your class, it's going to be a safe thing, and they're going to know what they can do. And again, it's going to take away the cortisol, add oxytocin. I'd love for the teachers, because I'm not teaching middle school or high school. I'd love for the teachers watching this to share some other things that they've done to create a positive culture in their class, or things that they've done to help work with kids that are really difficult. If you want to share those in the comment box, I'd love to see that. And I hope that you use this as a community, as a tool that you all can share. And so I said I didn't like that image that I created before. If we can do this together and kind of collaborate, and even I talk about creating resilience in the final video for this. And I obviously I expressed disgust with just saying this is just the way things are. We can bring an old system to a halt and begin a new system. And the way that I equate this is, instead of having this image of, yeah, it's just going to be the flood coming down the canyons and people are going to freak out, they're going to fight, they're going to tell you to F off, there's going to be, you're gonna have to send them home, they're just going to be expelled, maybe they need to just go to get a trade. If we can work together, if we can create a system where we're all like these sandbags holding back all this extra stress from all these kids and creating a new a new stream for all that energy. And I'll talk about ways of creating, resilience in the next video. And it comes from attachment. If we can create ways for adolescents to begin to attach to, things that we traditionally have, and we've known about this research for a long time. Kids are more likely to succeed with extracurricular activities. If they can somehow attach with or bond with something or people that are positive, whether, be it in choir, band, debate, speech, whether it be a soccer and tennis, golf, football, baseball, whatever it is, if we can somehow channel that into some positivity, and they can attach to, rather than screens or these negative activities or unhealthy toxic relationships at home and with your peers, if they can somehow attach, that's the way. It's these systems have been there, but they've been neglected, and if we can tap into them, we can make a difference. So I encourage you to go on in the series. The next series talks more concrete things that we can do to create resilience. I hope this has been beneficial. I'll also have some other videos interspersed with relaxation techniques, and I alluded to a communication technique. I'll throw that in there as well.